your sound first comes into the UBK-1, the first thing it hits is the saturator. The saturation knob determines how much or how little saturation you want. Up here you've got a meter, which is an activity meter. The more the saturation engine is engaging, the more activity you will see on this meter. Down here, you got wet and dry control, fully variable when you grab this rocker, or if you want to be lazy like me, you click instantly onto one of my favorite preset ratios, which take you from mostly dry, pretty evenly balanced, to dry and wet, mostly wet, completely wet. So, the wet-dry balance of your signal we shall call X. X gets passed along to the compressor. The compressor then compresses X as much or as little as you want, and then you blend that in parallel. Now the thing to get here is that what you're blending is compressed X versus uncompressed X. In other words, this is not compression versus dry. This is compressed saturated dry versus uncompressed saturated dry. That's how that works. Moving right along, you have a gain reduction meter. It's not really easy to tell what those numbers say now, is it? Maybe you'll just have to use your ears. Now here you've got 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 preset compressors. The way these things work is that you choose one and you get an attack, release, ratio, and knee that is unique to that compressor. So this is not 5 settings on one compressor. This is 5 different compressors. They grab differently, they move differently, they breathe differently. They're all very different. So you got this and this happening together in serial and in parallel, and then that whole thing is passed along to something called density. Density is a little bit hard to describe. It's actually a lot harder to describe, and even after you become familiar with it, you'll probably have trouble describing it to people. The best that I can say is that it's frequency selective compression and saturation, and you determine which spectral focus it has. Go on the mids or go on the top. Now, what this does and how it does it really depends heavily on what you're feeding it from these sections before. So it's very interdependent and interactive with the other processors. So play around with it, and when you get into a zone that you like, it's very easy to check how density is changing the character of your signal. And that's because this section, like every other section, can be bypassed individually by clicking on the VU meter for that section. So you can hear very easily what each part is bringing to the table and what you want to do about that. That is the basics of the engines. There you've got a makeup gain, which is pretty straightforward. It gets louder, it gets quieter. Simple. Now, I don't know if I've saved the best for last here, but I've arguably saved the most important, and that is the headroom control. Now, the headroom control is the first thing you should grab when you open up the UBK-1 for the first time on a sound. And what you want to do is you want to move this knob around until your ample light is blinking in time with the transients and is off about as much as it's on, or thereabouts. The idea here is that you dial in the internal operating level of this plugin perfectly first, so that you get the widest range of sweet spot in the saturation, compression, and density engines. Now that's the first thing you do. Now, as you move along tweaking out this plugin, there's going to be times when you're going to want to grab this headroom control, because what this lets you do is lean into all of the processors simultaneously, or back off of all the processors simultaneously with the turn of one knob. So you can kind of get in a zone and think, that's nice, but I want to ease it off just a little bit, in which case what you do is you turn this knob up, thus increasing the headroom, thus decreasing the amount of saturation, compression, and density that you will get. Conversely, if you find you want to have more breakup, more drive, more distortions, more compression, more movement, more whatever it is you're going for, you starve the plugin of headroom by turning this knob down. Now, if you keep going down with this low enough, eventually you're going to see a red light flashing here, which means you are now clipping inside this plugin. And I'm just going to say that clipping itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It just creates a sound. Whether you want that sound or not is a different question. If you find that you don't, you creep the headroom back up and you find the sweet spot of your distortions and operating level here. So that's the run through of all the controls. Now let's hear how this thing actually sounds. Okay, what we have here is a simple mix. Bass, drums, Rhodes. I've got a UBK-1 on each instrument and on the whole mix. Right now, they're sitting in their neutral default state. But if I take them out, that's different. How about that? Okay, we're going to start off with the drums and compression. What we're going to do here is we're going to change the way these drums move without making them sound compressed. So I'm going to take the smooth compressor, let's just turn it up so you can hear what this thing does when it's just compressing like a normal compressor. This. It's not to say it's louder, so it's better. It's to feel the difference in the way the groove moves. That is some crazy compression. Trust me, when I'm done, it's going to sound natural. So right about here is where the UBK Fatso hardware runs out of headroom and can't go any further. But the plugin has a way more headroom than the hardware, so we can keep going into over-compression. There. What's happening now is we have our first form of truly new movement. The snare drum and the kick drum are moving away from me. What I'm going to do next is grab the high pass knob, let that kick drum come through by telling the compressor to respond less to the bass. There it is. Got my kickback. Now what I have is yet another form of new movement where the kick drum's coming at me, the snare drum's moving away from me. Now that's a crazy amount of compression. Bring it back to ground zero. I'm going to click here and go to 15% wet, 85% dry. When I bring this compression back in, the vast majority of what you're going to be hearing is your dry signal. So what we got now is not compression as transient control, but compression as a form of motion and kinetic energy to enhance the groove. If I take this away from you, the music stops moving. And something very compelling about it goes away. Now I'm going to move on to this Rhodes. And we are going to thicken and saturate this thing. Now I'm going to turn the saturation all the way up. That's very subtle because this plugin has a lot of headroom. So what I'm going to do is use our headroom control to starve this thing of headroom so it will break up easier with the same amount of input. There it goes. Nice. Alright, now that's a little crunchy for a Rhodes. So let's find our sweet spot. It's very nice. Now, I'm going to bring back some of the dry and restore some of the clarity and shimmer of the bell. I'm going to come over here to density. Density is our friend with sounds like this. I'm going to tell it to target the mid-range, because that's pretty much what Rhodes is, mid-range. And I'm going to hit it, really thicken this sound up. If I take this out, it's not as dense. So now, all we have going on right at this moment is one compressor at 15%, one saturator at 40%, and the density control just over 1/2 on the mids of the Rhodes. But if I take those colors away from you, yeah, that ain't it. In fact, this is actually louder, and it doesn't sound as good as this. Lovely. So that's the UBK-1 being friendly and respecting the integrity of your original signal. But if you want, you can blow things up with this compressor. You just gotta choose your flavor and dial in the degree. If I switch over to squish, this is my EMI style limiting. Very Beatles Abbey Road. It's gonna have a big pop on the front and a soupy and wet release. Switch over to glue. This is my 1176 at 10 and 2. Medium attack, medium release. It's going to be much tighter and much snappier. Let's go back to our over-compressed movement. Yeah, that's nice. Let's do a little mix processing now and put a little bit of the aforementioned glue on everything. Go with a little blend. Add a little bit of density to the top. You don't even have to know what you're doing. Just kiss these things. Put this on your sounds. Make things move a little bit. Kiss the meters. And be conservative with your blends. Now I'm going to take this whole thing out. When I bring it back in, I want you to pay attention to how the bass and drums come back together and the whole top gets soft. That's moving very nicely. One more time. Everything out. Yawn. And that, my friends, is the UBK-1 motion generating character compressor. I hope you find this tool as creative and inspiring as I do. As always, if you have any questions, you can email me directly at ubk@cushaudio.com. You can check out more videos on this product and everything else I got at cushaudio.com. Thanks for listening and have a great day.